Hey folks, Studio here. Let's talk about LCS. Now, I'm just going to preface this by saying I have not been making that many analysis videos. I can't right now because the little replay doesn't work. Sorry about it. So I'm trying this instead. We're going to look at LCS. We're not going to look at the entire replay because I don't have camera control. I can't. I just can't really look at the games. So we're just going to look at some highlights, talk about the teams. These are super spoiler heavy. So if you do not want to know what happens without watching the VODs, don't look here. Go away. But if you want to see what I think or hear what I think and kind of see what the teams will need to do to evolve, I'm gonna do this I think every week, every day of LCS because it's fun to track the teams. It's very fun to see them grow and evolve and just get better. Let's go ahead and cover what we're even gonna look at. So, who played today? Dignitas versus Marn, Vulcan versus TSM, Complexity versus Curse, and Dignitas versus TSM. Look at those results. Game number 1, Dignitas versus Marn. I'm not going to talk about Dignitas very much because I feel this was a game where it didn't really matter who Marn played if they weren't top 4. I think maybe some of the lower teams like Complexity or Vulcan would have been a little bit different, but overall the same story is probably going to be consistent throughout. Martin doesn't know how good their opposition is. It's weird to imagine. Alright, did you ever play like Pokemon trading cards or Yu-Gi-Oh? Or like did some sort of athletic sport? Or even among your friends. Like let's say you're the best League of Legends player among your friends. Then you go into ranked and everybody just kicks your butt because you're not very good because you only play with your friends. I kind of got this impression from Marn. So let's kind of look at some of the clips from their games. Now, one person gets cut out a lot in this game. I'm not going to say it's entirely his own fault, but this is kind of what I mean when they're not used to the people they're playing against. Claykyd, he sits in a brush at 3-minute 15-second mark and he dies. Why does he die? It was warded. Now, if you look at Nivi's inventory, she still has a ward there. When did that ward get placed down? You can tell based off the white bar that's left. About the 1-minute 40, 1-minute 30-second mark. So before creeps even spawned. What? That's a super early ward. Who wards there? People who expect the ganks. So Marn, they were just caught off guard. Claykyd is actually in a really bad position. Had he been on the other side of the bush, he wouldn't have died, and they probably would have just baited out a gank or just wasted some of his time. So this is what I mean when I say that Marn isn't really used to their opposition. This is a great play from Dignitas. I mean, getting Kale and Lee Sin early first blood gold, even if it's only Kale getting an assist, that's huge. That's really massive. And that's kind of the story throughout the game. Claykyd, he's going to go towards the blue pit. He doesn't have vision. He fists in too, so he now no longer has an escape. And actually, after he fists in, he puts down a ward and is like, let me go ahead and do it now. Let me go kill blue buff. And it just evolves from there. He gets taken out. Mega Zero is going to get taken out too. And Mega Zero he's Renekton in level 6. And he has Flash, and he's still going to die. Because, well, Draven has a BF sword at the 8-minute or 9-minute mark. Now, what really causes problem, if you look at the minimap, it's kind of hard to tell, but there are a bunch of blue faces down here. These are all faces of Dignitas. There is no real call that they're there. I think this is what happened. Claykyd, he didn't really look at the minimap and said, I don't know where anybody else is. He just assumed that people weren't in the area and he could have gone for that blue buff. But it's also his team's fault. No one said, hey, by the way, bot's missing, they could be coming towards blue buff. If you look at the timing, Draven's almost there. They knew this was going to happen. Dignitas had amazing ward coverage, and just everything Marn did was spotted. Like, someone should be saying, Claykyd, don't go there. Don't go there, Claykyd. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, Claykyd. Now, it's really hard to judge how well a team fights if they fall behind in laning. If you fall behind in laning, your team fight is immediately weaker. Now, if you have a better team fighting team, or if you outplay the enemy team, that cannot matter. But, it does. It matters a lot. So, at this point, this is like the first big team fight. Marn is behind by 3,400 gold deal in the minute mark. Huge amount to be behind. Let's watch how it goes. Renekton, by the way, he's going to teleport in. He is not the fight, but he should show up relatively soon. Dignitas, they start doing the dragon. They know they're ahead. Renekton teleports behind the team. You can actually see on the mini-map. These wards out front are not where he goes. At this point, ClayKD tries to go in. I think he expected Renekton to back him up. Ends up ulting onto Kiwi Kid. Was that Kiwi Kid? I have to double check because it looked like no, he just got knocked to the side. He goes past and he goes towards Crumbs. But they're not really able to do anything. The dragon isn't secured. And, alright, they do pick up Kiwi Kid in the front line, but they won in hard, they won in and died. Now, why did that happen? Was that ClayKD's fault? I think people really want to blame Clayky, and it's very easy to. But that was an era where I think just the team didn't know where each other was. Where was Mega Zero? He was behind everybody. He's Renekton. He needs to be out in front. He needs to be doing his own thing. He needs to be being Renekton. And they didn't play like that. They didn't play like Renekton was going to be his own thing. Well, actually, they did play like that, like he's going to be his own thing, but Mega Zero didn't do that. He didn't play like that. Mega Zero didn't do it. And that's okay, because teleporting in front like that would be dangerous. And there wasn't a ward down. However, that's how they wanted to start the fight to start. That's what they want to do. This is communication. These are issues that Marn can resolve, but they are the results of being a new team. They clearly have work to do. Now, I don't want to just talk about Marn having a lot to do, but I will actually just kind of summarize it. They have to work on communication. They have to kind of keep track of the enemy, and more importantly, they have to communicate where the enemy is. A lot of these problems from their game have just been, where are people on the minimap? If the answer is, I don't know, then don't do anything stupid, because they'll probably come and try to gank you and kill you. Now, what did Dignitas do that was pretty cool? This is just kind of a cool pro Dignitas move. Watch Batoy's Pulverize. Now, Alistar play is really hard to judge. It's like, can you do headbutt Pulverize? Yeah, it's not that hard. You just mash Pulverize when you headbutt. Can you time your Pulverize as well? That's a different question. That's a much harder question to answer. And usually it's just hit a bunch of people. Watch how Batoy uses his Pulverize. He waits for a bunch of things. He's going to do it right now. He sees Kiwi Kid getting blown up. He's like, no, I need to back off. I'm not going to do it now. And then he sees, alright, now's my chance. Headbutt Pulverize knocks up 2 people, but when does he knock them up? When the rest of the team shows up. So he could have knocked them up over here. It would have just been protecting Kiwi Kid. But he doesn't care about Kiwi Kid. He knows the team is going to show up, back him up. He might die. But in the end, if they get the good catch on someone like ClayKD, they'll do a lot more with that. And then Batoy does this really, really manly flash and just gets heartbeat CC for a brief second. Headbutt has a very short CC associated with it. So really cool Alistar play from Batoy. This is the difference between an older team and a newer team. A newer support would have pulverized right away because he saw a bunch of people grouped up. It's like, oh, I could hit them all. And that's cool, but it doesn't matter because no one's nearby. But he waits. He waits until the team shows up. And it actually locks people down for Draven Ultimate for a very brief second, which is really funny and really cool. So, Marn, they have to not be a new team. They have to kind of look inward and just focus on talking to each other. I think communication is going to be the big deal. They also have to keep playing better teams and keep acting like those teams will be better. If you have not played against a better team, something like a Ward in the Brush early on, in that mid lane brush, it'll catch you by surprise. You won't expect it. Especially if Anivia still has a Ward in your inventory, you kind of bait yourself out going, oh, the Ward's still there, she shouldn't have that much coverage. And even then, Marn needs to know how good their opposition is. They're not solo queue players. They're playing against teams that are in LCS. They are very good teams. Especially the earlier matchups have been very good teams versus either very good teams or just not so good to average teams in comparison. Now, moving on. What's match number 2? It's going to be TSM versus Vulcan. Now, Vulcan is not a new team. They have a lot of issues that kind of remind me of a new team, though. But let's talk about an issue that's, I think, really racked Vulcan's just existence. Back since they were MTW, MME, Fear, a picture of a goose, Atlanta's team. They've had nerves. We're going to see what happens. And it's when you make a very, very rash decision very quickly. It can be something very small that you don't normally expect. It can be a misclick. It can just be something silly. But we're going to see the results of one of those misclicks now. And we're going to see TSM make a ball of play. This is fucking ballin'. This is just a cool play. Like, my god, this play is so cool. Alright. It's very common in a 2v1 situation to have your jungler show up for a gank, and it's very common for a jungler to show up to defend that gank. So it's now a 2v3 instead of a 1v2. You can't really dive the 2, though. as a 3 in this case, because the turret's going to do too much damage, and hopefully the jungler or the top have some sort of a CC, so that whoever starts tanking the turret first, they can't survive. So go in knowing that. Go in knowing that most 2v3s doesn't result in a kill, just people farming experience. Now, there's going to be a moment where everything goes downhill. Here is that moment. So really cool play comes out here. KX gets a really good double up, hits both Psycho Sid. They end up focusing down Xmithy, even though Psycho Sid goes down lower first, but there's a moment, there's a very specific second where everything goes to hell. So wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Right there, do you see it? Do you see it? That was everything going to hell. The second Xmithy uses Dragon Strike, X Special goes in. He's like, they know they can do it. Xmithy, he even tosses down his standard because he knows he needs the armor, but it's too late. Now, why did that go so poorly? Why did Xmithy use the Dragon Strike? I think he just either got cocky or nervous. He thought, no, they can't kill us. I'm just going to poke them down a bit. Or he freaked out because he was being approached. The problem is, once he was being approached, using that Dragon Strike, there goes his CC, there goes his combo, and there goes everything. They no longer have a way to stop the enemy team from diving them just for free. It's also a very good play from TSM. Like, they actually spread the damage really well, which is rare. Normally you don't want to. It's like everybody's taking really high burst. Great Leona damage comes out into everybody. It's the passive dealing heavy burst. It's the double up from KX dealing tremendous amounts of damage. And this grows. But let's talk about one of the issue Vulcan has. They have never had a shot caller, so they've had nerve issues. It was, I think, a bigger issue with Atlanta, but it's kind of always been on the team. But shot calling. Who calls shots for Vulcan? Like, you can know for other teams. Reginald calls for TSM. For CLG, it's Choster. For Dignitas, it was I Will Dominate, which is why they had such a shaky transition when I Will Dominate left the team. Actually, I don't know who calls now. Might be Crumbs, might be Skara. I'm not positive. For GGU, it is Nintendo Dex. For Meat Playground, it was Poe Belter. So you know who calls for a lot of these teams. Complexity, a lot of Mortis. Like, I can list these people. Who calls for Vulcan? I don't know. That's a problem. That's a problem when I've seen this team forever and I don't know who tells them what to do. And we're going to see this in action. When you don't have a consistent shot caller, people tend to make plays that look really good if everybody follows up, and people don't tend to follow up on it. So Dragon, it is secured by Vulcan. Very good play from them. Very, very good Dragon to secure. They see Chaos out of position, and Psycho Sid and Zuna go for him. Now, what's going on in the rest of the map? Well, Mandatory Cloud no longer has his ultimate because he used it to try and kill Chaos, and he did help secure the kill. The rest of Vulcan gets caught out and dies. What? This was a great fight. They got Dragon, they kill Chaos, and they lose the engagement 3-1. I mean, they're actually still about equal in overall gold, but they're going to miss them because of CS. Now, the reason this goes so poorly is just kind of look at the map. Look at the map once they start engaging onto Chaos. I'll actually go back here. So Xmithy is just going to immediately get out there. You can kind of see him recalling right there. He immediately leaves. He doesn't have the HP to fight. It's not worth it for him. Muffin Cutie is going to stop chasing, and then he's just kind of going to try and go around and then change his mind once he realizes the enemy team shows up. So they split two people off. You never split two like this. Unless, like, you have really good escapes on those two, which Rumble, Graves, they actually have mobility, but they don't have good escapes. Not good enough to escape the team from TSM. That's weird to say. I mean, Muffin Cutie getting caught out here and dying, this was just him being the straggler and chasing down, and the question is, should they have done it? Well, yeah, but everybody had to go. They could have 4v4'd, possibly won, with Xmithy just going back to base if they killed Chaos really quickly, but they didn't. They 1v4'd, then 2v4'd, and the Mandatory Cloud survived. They don't have a shot caller, or they're just not being called quickly enough or well enough, or people aren't listening. Something is wrong. That is something that can be improved upon, but that takes a lot of effort, and it's been a long time coming. Vulcan, they run into the same issue from that Marn did right here, which is they did not anticipate the great play from TSM. This is something that I can't fault them for, though, because TSM played this well. They played this very well. That was Jarvan's flag combo being dodged by Reginald, which means that Xmithy goes in, and then all of a sudden he has no CC, they have no follow-up on Reginald, and they're screwed. That's actually just, oops, wrong play. Just a very cool play. Just watch it again. Boom flash. It actually looks like, he gets hit by the Dragon Strike. You can see it proc on him. He takes the damage from that, and he gets a debuff, but he dodges the actual Jarvan, so he doesn't get the combo and the CC. So cool play there. Now, when you let a team get far ahead of you, it's scary. But that combo, the fact that Reginald dodged the flash, or not the flash, he flash dodged the standard Dragon Strike combo, that's huge for morale. It's not that TSM was ahead. They were ahead, and they were definitely ahead after that fight. It's that Vulcan just weren't confident. They did not feel they could win a fight. They felt they had to play really defensively. So next clip, what's it going to be? We're going to watch Vulcan lose a fight, and just watch how TSM starts it. This is very silly, and this is partially because TSM is super far ahead, so that's why they can do it. But they chase away Dyrus, and then they just kind of group up. Like, they're all huddled around the members of TSM. Xmithy's kind of poking forward. No one's confident to do anything, though. And how does TSM start a fight? Renekton walks into them, and that's all they need. At that point, they just escape. They can't do anything, or they feel like they can't do anything. You'll notice nobody's using their ultimates to try and disengage, except Mandatory Cloud does in a second. And actually, Mandatory Cloud and Psycho do in a second, but it comes too late. And accidentally, Mandatory Cloud launches the Renekton forward. So what is the problem here? They lost their hut spot. They lost their confidence. They didn't engage onto Dyrus. They didn't engage onto members of TSM. They just kind of prattled around and got taken out. At this point, I think Xmithy got nervous and realized that the game was effectively over. Being behind 8-19 and 10,000 gold is too much. So, what does Vulcan need to improve on? What can Vulcan do to be a better team? Well, nerves. Nerves can't be affecting them like this. Xmithy can't make mistakes like that, but it's not just Xmithy. Every member of Vulcan tends to have these just nervous mistakes. I'd say Zuna, not so much. Zuna's actually really, really solid in that, so is Psycho Sid, but they're new to, well, they're relatively new. They're kind of new to Vulcan. They're not new. They were there before. Actually, I don't know if Psycho Sid wasn't, but Zuna was in the team before, and Psycho Sid played for CLG Black for quite some time. Even if CLG Black didn't really play, besides, I think, one tournament, MLG. So, what can they do to improve? What can Vulcan do to improve? What you should be looking out for? More calls. So when you see something happen with Vulcan, it's not just a member of Vulcan, it's the team of Vulcan. And so far what we were seeing a lot of was just one or two guys would do their own thing, and then everything would collapse for them, and just, you'd feel bad. So that's what you want to look out for. Vulcan playing more as 5 people rather than just a bunch of singles. What else are you going to have to look out for and hope to see improve? Their nerfs. You should see less mistakes come out of them. If they're just making mistakes, well, mistakes are very costly, very punishing. Use Dragon Strike at the wrong time, you give away First Blood. TSM did play it very well. They punished those mistakes, but punishing mistakes, that's part of the game. If you let yourself be open, if you make those mistakes yourself, you're asking to be punished. Really, I think it's going to come down to confident shot calling. I'm not sure who calls their shots. Hopefully it's developed a bit more, but if it isn't, well, I'm sorry. Vulcan, they're going to be kind of stuck in a rut. Now, next match, Complexity versus Curse. This match is awesome. I recommend this match just watch this match. I'm not going to cover too much, but Complexity, I'd say them and GGU are the not top 3 teams that might be top 3 in the future. So, they're smart, they're unique, they try out cool stuff. Let's just watch this. I swear to God I didn't get a drink of water during that. Now, why is this so cool? Because it's not just well done, it's perfectly done. So Soraka goes for the heal by the time the heal falls off. Look at this shield. Shield hits. So one tick of the shield, it gets broken, immediately falls off, then pops on again. That's very, very hard to time. That's very impressive. That was the perfect angle and perfect timing for that. Or perfect distance. So that's just cool play. That's what I say when Complexity is smart. They're also running Soraka. The Soraka pick cost them. If you see the bottom, Kog'Maw's really very far behind in CS, but they still use the pick well. So even though things aren't going perfectly for them, they're still able to kind of maximize the Soraka-ness, because guess what? Nick Wu baits out Voyboy and gets a sweet kill. That is just pure baitage right there. Now, I don't know if they meant to bait it out that low, because Nick Wu is really damn low, but they do it perfectly. Like, that is the right second. They abuse Voyboy's cooldowns. That's huge. So they use it well. They're using Soraka well. They're able to get these really cool gimmicks off. They also have cool plans, or good plans. This isn't super unique. This is pretty cool, though. It's Cop. He gets initiated on. He takes a lot of damage, and he dies. This was their plan for the game. Have a lot of Mortis go on to someone squishy or someone that needs to be killed. So, like Jackie would be a good target for a lot of Mortis' ultimate. Also, Cop on Misfortune, because kill the AP carry or kill the AD carry, kill either, it's huge. And the goal was, you have a lot of Mortis being a big, huge threat in the front, that Brunch you in the back playing Kog'Maw can just kind of kill people. And Curse, they kind of fall apart here. They actually did not look very good this game. Like, for example, Jackie right there walked by Chuper. This means Chuper's going to get to the fight at the same time Jackie does, and Chuper's ultimate can start contributing right here. This is the point where Chuper can already do stuff, and Jackie's going to be showing up later. Had he tried to stop and just fight Chuper there, well, maybe he could pick up a kill, but he'd also be delaying the aid from this ultimate already. Now, they already got a turret on Complexity. Now they're going 2 for 3, and they got that initial gank. It's a 4-kill to 2-kill trade, and they get bot turret. So they're playing well. They're playing as a team. They actually get Curse to really trickle in and punish them super hard for it. But that was their plan when things were going well. If they get Cop really caught off guard, either away from his team or just far in front, it goes super well. But what happened once Curse wised up to this? This is Curse playing smart. This is also Curse a little bit farther ahead in gold, 4,000 advantage. So a lot of Mortis, he goes in, he goes for Jackie, he tries to use the ultimate. They actually get a good ultimate from Chuper as well, playing Lux, and then the front line just gets evaporated. They just turn and kill him. Why is this? Why are they able to really just completely take out a lot of Mortis? They planned for it. They expected this to happen. If you look at Curse's team, they actually have really good initiation. Hecarim goes in and disturbs Kog'Maw, which is what happens. No matter what, Hecarim should be able to get to Kog'Maw. You can flash dodge his ultimate, but it's not as big a deal, because he still does really good sustained damage. And then the team that they have on Curse is going to be, well, if Hecarim can get a good initiate on, and Misfortune can get a good ultimate, then you have Elise and Ryze just take everybody else out, because they're very good at dueling 1 versus 1 and just taking out single targets. The problem is, once Curse realized that the front line was just going to be engaging hard for Complexity, they just turned that around. Alright, Jackie, stay in back, take out the guy driving at you. Hecarim, he can go forward, he can try and be a big nuisance and disturb Kog'Maw, but if they ever go too far forward, punish him for it. And they do. And we see a really good example of this in, I think, this clip that I accidentally skipped. Whoops. This is a really good example of the Curse punishment system. Flash from Cop gets him so far back that Nick Wu has to just slice to get there, can't even get the dice off. A lot of Mortis gets taken down, and they just kind of hunt down the members of Complexity at this point. So Complexity, they play well, but they didn't adapt. They needed to kind of push their advantage more, and when the fights stopped working in their favor, they needed to stop going for aggressive dives like that. Also, they needed more ward coverage, but that's something else. That's something it's kind of hard to show, aside from a lot of Mortis walking into people in a very silly manner. What does this mean for Complexity? They're a good team. They have a lot of potential. They still have that fresh feeling that a lot of other new teams have, like Marn. But unlike Marn, they have very solid plans. They are willing to try things that are different, unique, risky, weird. Like buy Solomon Dragon with the help of Lux Shield and Soraka Heal. Who does that? Complexity does that. It's cool. They should roll with it. They should keep doing what works. Obviously, now that they've busted out the Vi level 4 dragon, they need to make sure it doesn't get warded and she doesn't get killed. But now they have this solid strategy that teams have to look out for. They have to use a ward on it. They have to use something on it. And if they can keep keep it up, if they can keep up this unique composition and unique style of play, that was one game. I could see them very easily getting up there. I think they also have to work on nerves too. Nerves were a big issue for them. A lot of Mortis missed a lot of IQs. It was really depressing, actually. It's not an easy skill to land, but that doesn't matter. So final match, Dignitas versus TSM. So I've talked about Marn, Vulcan complexity, what they need to improve on. Curse, that game was kind of hard. They got caught out a lot, and I think they just have to take the matches versus the lesser ranked teams. Like, people consider TSM to be higher than complexity, for example. They need to take those smaller matches much more seriously and do their research, but that's something I would already expect. Dignitas and TSM, I'll talk about them after this match, because I think this is a good indicator of TSM and Dignitas overall. So looking at this game, what was this game like? Well, Dignitas spent the first 5 minutes reacting. TSM, they go for a 3v1 dive. They don't have a jungler there for Dignitas. Xinjiao's back at base, and they pick up Ezreal with Ignite. Like, they kill someone in that dive, which 1-for-1 dive in a 1v3, that's awesome. Now, the rest of the story is just Dignitas, they keep reacting to TSM. Allen goes for a gank mid, he's sitting on a ward, kind of like the ward that cut out Clicky D, actually, placed the 1 minute 40 second mark, and they kill Reginald. Reginald, he goes for the fight, he just cannot do it. Like, if you look how he baits this out, it's Scar getting the kill on his own. Like, Reginald walks forward to be a nuisance and bait Scar forward, but it turns out he was really just baiting himself. And he flashes his eyes to Ignite. So TSM, they try and make a couple plays across the map. They try and make the 3-man dive happen top lane, go 1-for-1, which is really bad. They try and go mid lane and do something big there, but they lose 0-for-2, which is really bad. What happens when Dignitas does their own plays? So Dig, they're going to try and do something. Kiwi Kid moves forward, and he killed one. There he goes. Reginald dives mid lane to a 2v1. And then bot lane, Dignitas, they're actually pushing out X Special, and just they're a huge nuisance and very scary to him. They just do too much damage. So that's actually my last clip. I'm not going to show the team fights because Dignitas was so far ahead at this point. They were able to go 5-to-1. That's 5-for-1. It's the end of the game if the enemy team hasn't taken like 4 turrets in response. And it shows because the final score, or the goal was 14,000 to 12,000. A little bit bigger than that, which is a big difference. A 2.5k at 9-minute mark, that's huge. Now, what does this mean for Dignitas? What does this mean for TSM? Dignitas, it means they're not out. Last week they got their asses kicked. No one's down that. They beat Vulcan, but they lost hard to everybody else. Now they took out Marn, they took out TSM, and they made it look easy both times. They need to have like their stable ground. So last week they were still moving in. I think that was a big problem. They weren't in a house yet. I think they now have their house yet. They now have a place to live. They need to make sure that they replace I Will Dominate, not just in person, but in the commands given out in his role on the team. He's not just a jungler now. He was a jungler that said a lot of things, and I think they've started to work on it. Kiwi Kid needs to work on his 1v2. He has died in the past when he really shouldn't have died, but he got the Ignite kill. He did something big. He did something very, very important, and went 1-for-1 a 3v1, which is massive. Dignitas, if they can just kind of keep up their strategies, they're just kind of aggressive, not necessarily all-in champions, but just follow-up champions that they can all work with each other, they can do well. That Diana pick is huge. I think Diana is going to be their best character, and they're going to try and run it as much as possible. TSM, well, they ran the same old shit every game. Just have a bunch of lanes, and then a bunch of ults that chain off each other. You land Orianna ultimate, then Renekton goes and presses his R, slices and dices to get the armor shred. Ezreal, Leona ultimate follow up with Reginald ultimate. It's all just kind of grouped together and very, very TSM. Now, TSM, they don't need to worry about beating teams like Vulcan. They should be able to do so with their current plan. They're just ahead. They'll win 9 games out of 10. They need to make sure they can beat Dignitas and Curse and CLG. And how do you beat those guys? You got to play well. You got to kind of outsmart them. So TSM, if they want to compete with the higher teams, they have to make sure that they're always going to be innovative. They can't just go for the same picks over and over because they'll be caught out. They'll be expected. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was my first time doing this with a bunch of high elo highlights like this, so tell me if you liked it. The music you're listening to is Russian Roulette from Killer 7. And that's all for now. Adios, folks.